Hello, my fellow pen enthusiasts. You'll have to forgive me. I'm having a little bit of issues with allergies right now, so my voice is a little bit raspy. But I wanted to do the review on the Moonman C1. This is a pen that I was very excited for, and the minute I saw it, the picture come out on Instagram, and the first seller that had it available, I went ahead and scooped it up. It took about 2.5, 3 weeks to get to my home. I've had it now for a few days. I could not wait to ink it up. I think I got it roughly about a week ago, give or take, from the time I'm shooting this video. And I've been writing with it every day since then. Now the question is it worth getting? Is this a pen that is right for you? So of course, we're going to go over the parts of the pen, talk a little bit about it, do some comparisons with some other pens, always do a writing sample, and then I'll tell you guys if whether or not this is a pen that I enjoy using. So we have our Moonman case. I've got to show that off, of course. This is probably my favorite pen packaging right now. I like it. There's nothing, it's just different. I like it a lot. So the pen does come with a converter. So this is a cartridge converter setup. From what I can tell, this looks really just like a standard international converter. So if you do not want to eyedropper this pen and you like to really change out inks a lot or something like that, you have the option of using a converter with it, which I think it is nice that Moonman included that with the pen. Now, if you do want to eyedropper it, you don't have syringes laying around your house, you do get one with the pen as well. So again, another nice thing. Most eyedropper pens come with those, but it's nice that they included that as well. And then of course you get your instruction pamphlet. But you're not here to see packaging, you're here to see the pen. So I always give my first impressions, and the first thing I noticed when I opened the package, and honestly, it was the section. I'm not gonna lie. Yes, the whole pen's transparent. Yes, it is attractive, but the first thing that my eyes gravitated towards was the section. Now, you don't get to pick your section color, which for some of us may be a little bit upsetting, but I like the way mine came, I will say. So when I opened the package, I thought, okay, I got a red section. Nothing wrong with that. I like the color red, that's perfectly fine. But when you flip it over, it's actually purple on the other side. So I like the fact it's like a two-tone section. As you can tell, it's got a lot of chatoyancy in it. It just looks really, really cool. It gives the pen kind of a different vibe, in my opinion. So that was the first thing that I noticed. Now, as far as the parts of the pen, so as you can tell, it's a flat top pen, both on the cap and the barrel. And when I say flat, I mean flat. It literally can just stand on its own. I like that, actually. Moonman, as most of you know, they've been coming out with a lot of cigar and torpedo shaped pens. So this one definitely is a little bit different, and I like the fact that it's like this. Reminds me just a little bit of, I think it's the Lakai fountain pen, the very first Moonman pen, you could say, or at least the first one I know of. Just reminds me a little bit of that. Not completely, but just a little bit, just some small similarities. The other thing is, you'll notice I don't have a pen rest. The pen is not rolling, and that is because it has this flat section right here. So it is not fully cylindrical. It's not just, so if the pen starts to roll, now if it gets rolling, nothing's going to stop it necessarily. But if you lay it down at a certain angle, it will stop rolling. So I think like that, you don't have to use a pen rest with it necessarily. If you've got it on your desk, nice thing, because it doesn't have a clip. It is a very minimalistic design, but they added that in there, and I like that design. A little bit different than what you would see on most pens, for instance. Now, of course, you can pretty much see everything in here. Now, it does, of course, come with that Moonman number 6 size nib, as we can see there. It's not a two-tone like it was on the M6, which I, again, kind of like that. I like the fact that they went with a little bit different nib. The overall design in the nib, though, is exactly the same. It's got that kind of mountain look to it, the Moonman logo, as well as that crescent breather hole. As far as the feed, it's got that same stamped feed on the back, so just your kind of injection molded feed. And the nib unit, it is a unit that you can unscrew, so if you want to unscrew it when you clean out the pen, totally separate it from the section, of course you can do that. As far as taking off the cap here, and let's see how many turns it takes. There's 1, 2. So almost exactly 2 turns to get the cap off. So not too bad. Now, because of this kind of streamlined design and this minimalistic design, it does have a pretty sizable step down right here. Now, the one nice thing about that, though, is there's a lot of space from the step down to the end of the section. Section is a little bit hourglass shaped, so for me, I usually hold it about right here. It is a number 6 size nib, so it's a little bit longer, and I don't ever really feel the step down at all. It is sharp. I'm not going to lie to you there. It is somewhat sharp, so do bear that in mind. If you're somebody that holds your pen up really high, you may not like that step down, but for me, it does not bother me at all. This is not a pen that will post because of the design of the cap and the pen. It's not going to post. If you have extremely abnormally large hands, might not be a pen you would like. However, for me, it fits very nice in my hand, as you can tell, and it is very, very comfortable to write with. Now, I did not silicone grease my threads. I know some of you may be like, oh my goodness, what were you thinking? But I didn't. I just wanted to try it out without silicone greasing it. I know not everyone is going to have silicone grease available. I figured if the pen leaked, it would be my own problem and I would deal with it. I actually did not silicone grease my M2 either. I just finally cleaned this pen out. I got the nib soaking right now. I didn't grease this one either. Never once did it leak. It didn't even burp for that matter. So I think you should be good there, but if you have silicone grease, it's never a bad thing to do that. It does have a really nice O-ring right here. And I mean, that thing, you've got to really pull to get it out. There's a lot of force there and it really seals it up. You can see where the ink's kind of pulled up just a little bit where that O-ring is at, but it hasn't gone past that. So I think it does its job very well. Now the barrel. This barrel can hold, I would say max capacity, about 5 milliliters of ink. So I mean, massive amount of ink. If you're somebody that wants a pen that can hold a lot of ink, this is a good option for you because it can definitely hold a lot of ink. It's transparent, so if you like to, like a really nice colorful ink, I think it definitely will work for you there. I have Birmingham's Andy Warhol Pop Art Purple. It's a really, really long name, but I love this purple ink, and that's what I chose to put in here, and I think it looks good, especially on paper. So in essence, that is the pen. My first thing about the pen is aesthetically wise, I love the pen. And of course, I got ink on the cap. I'll clean that off here in a minute. So aesthetically wise, I love the pen. Now the question is, does it work mechanically? Which we're going to get into that here in a moment. Before we do that, let's do a few sizing comparisons just with some other Moonman pens, of course, and just to get an idea of how it compares size-wise to those other pens. I'll see you in a moment. All right, so here we see it stacked up against 3 other Moonman pens. So starting from the bottom and working our way to the top, we have the newer model Moonman M6 here as well. We have our C1, and then we have, of course, the M2. Again, I don't have a nib in here right now. It is soaking. And then we have our Moonman M200 as well. And overall size, I mean, the pen, lengthwise, you can tell is about the same as the other 3 pens. Girth-wise is decent. It has a nice weight to it. Of course, I'll put weights and dimensions up on the screen here in a moment, but definitely has a solid size to it, which I really, really like. Now let's see all of the pens uncapped, just so we can kind of see those sections and compare those as well. So it's nice to kind of compare sections and everything, and all 4 of these pens honestly have different sections. Now, which ones do I prefer the most? Well, let's look at the sections first, and then we'll kind of talk about which ones I prefer the most. So you'll notice here that the M200 definitely has a kind of unique section, at least in my opinion. Looks a little bit like a Franklin Christoph, however, it is somewhat on the skinny side, where it really concaves at the very end of the pen. The M2 has more of a straight section. It doesn't really, no hourglass to it, no flare out at the end. somewhat comfortable, a little bit on the skinny side, but somewhat comfortable. And then of course we have our kind of standard hourglass shape on our C1. And then we've got more of a, again, another straight section that just kind of slowly tapers down to the end of the nib on the M6. As far as what I prefer, as far as what is comfortable to me, I do prefer the C1 as far as those type of sections. One of the reasons why I like my Pin BBS 323s, they kind of have that same standard type of hourglass section that I find very comfortable when I'm riding with. So for instance, I'll give you an example if I can get it out. Here's my 323, and again, kind of that hourglass styled section, which a lot of Pin BBS pins have that, and I think they're comfortable to write with. Now, the other thing is I wanted to show, so we have our two Moonman nibs. So here's our two-tone that was in the M6, and then here is our just regular silver or steel nib here on the C1. So I think understated nibs, but very attractive. The M2 here, as well as the M200, both have number 5 size nibs. This is actually the nib that goes in my M2. Both nibs write well. You know, Schmidt nibs can be hit and miss, sometimes inconsistent, but actually that's a nice Schmidt nib in that M200. But there you have it. I'm not going to show these pins in their posted form because the C1 does not post, so I don't think it would really matter that much. But I can write with all 4 of these pins unposted, and they're relatively comfortable to write with. Even the M2 for me, I have no issues with it, writing with it unposted. So up next, I'm going to post some weights and some dimensions for everyone. And then we're going to do a writing sample to see how that nib performs. It's nice now because now I have the second Moonman pin. So now we are going to have 2 nibs to kind of compare. I just ordered a third Moonman pin, and that would be the M600 with the new Moonman nib. And so then I'll have a third nib. So really we can see if the nibs are consistent. So if you guys watched my M6 review, I really liked the nib in here. Let's see if the C1 holds up with the M6 nib. See you in a moment. All right, everyone, we're back. So one thing that I did fail to mention, and most of you will notice if you get this pen, your nib generally is not completely aligned. So when it sits flat, the nib usually is going to be turned just a little bit. I do not have my section 100% torqued down. There's probably just maybe a slight, say maybe quarter turn at the most that it could go. Now, of course, I was worried, okay, the section could leak. I did store my pen overnight, completely facing down, did not have any leakage whatsoever. So I did do that. I'm not recommending anybody do that. So if you do that, your pen leaks, do not be angry with me. But my OCD was kicking in, I guess you could say. And because my nib was not facing directly up, I don't know, it's just a problem. So I did that. I have not had any leaks, but I did want to share that if you notice that and are wondering, well, why is his nib like that and mine's not? Well, that's because I just did that on my own. All right, let's start the writing sample. So this again is the Moonman. Oh, I can't spell today, I apologize. C1. The ink that I'm using is one of my favorite inks, honestly, and that is this Birmingham ink. If you have not tried out Birmingham ink, they are awesome. And this is Andy Warhol Pop Art Purple. I'm gonna have to order another bottle of this soon because I'm almost out of this one. That ink is one of my favorite inks that I use. I'm really not a purple person, but I just like that ink. And this is the Moonman steel nib. And this is supposed to be, if I remember correctly, yeah, it's a fine nib. But you know, it's a little bit on, I would say it's like a Western fine almost. I don't feel like it's extremely fine. I'm not going to go as far as say it's like a medium nib, but it is a little bit broader than a lot of Chinese fine nibs. So for those of you that don't like Chinese fine nibs, This one is, to me, at least for me, is a little broader, and I like that part about it. Let's do an actual sentence here. My writing is horrible. I apologize. All right, so there you see kind of the pen in action, and I have to say that this nib is very smooth. It's smoother than my M6, and it's crazy. This is definitely the nicest nib I've gotten in a Chinese pen. I'm not exaggerating. It's kind of a little bit bouncy. As you can notice there, that you can get some line variation out of it. It's very wet, very smooth. It writes very nice. You know, to give you an idea from wetness, I mean, I don't want to say it's a gusher necessarily, but it is very wet. It is a nice nib. You know, very smooth, just a little bit of like bounce to it. I would put this nib against pens that are of a much higher price point. I mean, if I get tired of using this pen setup, I might even just try and switch this nib out with something else. I mean, I don't know. But I have found myself wanting to write with this pen every single day that I've had it since I received it. And I already mentioned that the pen itself is aesthetically pleasing, at least for my taste. I know not everybody's going to like something like this. But in addition to that, the nib just ties it all together. And for me, makes this pen an excellent buy. I don't think any pen's perfect, but this pen might be perfect. And I've probably never said that, but I really, really like this pen. So I know not everyone's going to have the same exact experience with their nib as I have had, but if it's any indication on what the potential is for your nib, I think this pen is a no-brainer. Do not let it sell out and wait and hope that they restock it. Go get you one of these pens. I don't know if Bobby still has his available on Etsy, but I know Chris Rap 52, he got his, I think, for like literally $21. And usually Bobby only charges you, if he even charges shipping, is like $1. So for probably $22, $23, you can get one from Bobby Pens. Don't wait. I got mine from Easy Buy on, I think it was their Etsy account. And I had no issues with them either. Every transaction I've had with them has been very pleasant. They have a tendency to be a little bit more expensive, so shop around a little bit. But I am telling you, this is an amazing pen. Moonman just continues to blow me away. I'm going to shut up now. I can't say enough good things. I have nothing bad to say about this pen whatsoever. No critiques, nothing. Anyone from Moonman ever watches this video, this is an amazing pen. I love it. Everyone have a wonderful day, afternoon, or evening, whatever time of day you're watching this. I will see you later. Bye-bye.